This is called What I Learned from the Only Latina in Space. I've become a big fan of Star Trek. Not hardcore. I'm not emotionally invested in a particular canonical timeline, and I don't really care what a Klingon's forehead is style. I didn't even start watching the show until the original series became available on Netflix. It was entertaining enough, despite the hokey Cold War era cultural empiricism that drove every episode. I never really understood why it was so heavily praised as a radical show. I know that coming out of an era when Asian Americans could really only get cast as chauffeurs, it was a big deal to see George Takei as a lieutenant, but Sulu's job was driving the Enterprise. Of course, I understand putting Nichelle Nichols on the bridge during the civil rights struggle was seen as progressive, but Uhura's primary responsibility was answering the phones. In terms of radical representation, the show always felt like a C+. Yeah, they did it, but they didn't do it quite right. Still, I watched. To understand how I came to love the show, we have to skip back to my late teens and early adulthood. I was certain I would not live past the age of 30. I wasn't ill or suicidal, I just couldn't see past my 20s. I wasn't nihilistic about it. I went on doing what middle-class assimilated kids do. Went to a community college, transferred to university, didn't put a lot of thought into what I'd do afterwards. I didn't put much effort into dating. The term life partner was not even in my vocabulary. Despite my lack of effort, I met my partner in university. We graduated, got jobs, began to build a life together. The idea that I wouldn't live past 30 remained present, but as I approached my late 20s, it began to feel a bit irrational. I knew in Vulcan terms it was illogical, but knowing that about a feeling doesn't preclude you from feeling it. Around the same time, I started to watch Next Generation, just a few decades behind its release. I honestly couldn't tell you the plot of a single episode, and really I was playing on my iPhone through most of the series. What I do recall is Ensign Gomez. If you're not a Trekkie, I'm sure this name means nothing to you, and if you are a Trekkie, this name probably means nothing to you. When I heard the name, I put my phone down and gave Star Trek my undivided attention. Sonia Guadalupe Gomez was the only Latina in space. I read and watch a fair amount of science fiction, and this was the first time I'd come across a Latino character in the genre. This was the first time I'd seen somebody who looked like she could be a member of my family on a spaceship. The more I thought about it, the more I realized there's a lack of characters on screen that I related to. Certainly not enough to dress up like one and go to a convention. There's a dearth of Latinos in space, but also of queer people of color in all media. More to the point, I'd never seen a gay leading character in a role I really respected. This isn't to say I didn't see gay characters in media, just none whose shoes I could put myself in. I'm no one's sassy gay friend. I've never been interested in a drug-fueled night at the clubs, and I'm not one of those sympathetic, let's get your life together queers. Through my adolescence, the characters I saw were normally comic relief, supporting characters, and all too often the butt of the joke. If they were the center of the story, they usually ended in predictable tragedy. Maybe you loved My So-Called Life, The Birdcage, or Queer as Folk, and I don't want to disparage them, but I didn't relate to them. It's no wonder I couldn't see myself as a full adult in the world. I'd never seen anyone like me. No one bothers to put The Quiet Gaze on television. Having never seen anyone like me in the world, at some point I assumed there was no place for me in the world, and that eventually I would just stop being in it. Needless to say, I continued on, and I've done fairly well. The US recognized my right to marry my partner. We got married, moved to Canada, established careers, and I turned 30. Thank you. In the years since my 30th birthday, we've seen a wider variety of out public figures. Television and movies have a wider variety of queer characters, though still too often they're the butt of a joke. This year, Star Trek started a new series, and I saw something I'd never seen before. There on my TV were two 30-something gay professional men in a mixed-race marriage. For the first time, I saw something that looked like my life. My life is much less exciting and more terrestrial. But still, these were characters I related to. Moreover, with Wilson Cruz as Dr. Colbert, we now doubled the number of Latinos in space. It was a strange combination of excitement and pride that I literally felt in my chest the first time we see Lieutenant Stamets and Dr. Colbert together, brushing their teeth before bed. It was a weird giddiness, like a vicarious crush on this fictional relationship, and I wondered how different my outlook on the world would have been if I had seen this 18 years ago. I had never imagined I could go to space, never really even imagined I could be a doctor, never really even imagined I could marry a man. All fiction is an abstraction of reality, but science fiction is special because it imagines what our reality could be. Imagining the reality we want is the first step in creating it. I want to see women of color commanding spaceships, both in real life and on TV. I want to see trans and genderqueer people in positions of authority without having their bodies or pronouns questioned. There's a lot of talk recently about how representation is important, and even to those of us who know this, it can still seem like an abstract concept. I want to see these things because it doesn't take a psychologist to know it isn't healthy for a 19-year-old to look at the future and not be able to see themselves in it. The writers of Star Trek Discovery did something so great, and then they messed it up. They killed Dr. Colbert. Yeah, I was angry. And fan blogs show I'm not the only one who was mad that they had turned this into another gay tragedy. As angry as I was still really grateful to have seen something that really resonated with me. And it changed the way I looked at Star Trek as a whole. I better understand Sulu and Uhura in light of Stamets and Colbert. They didn't do it quite right, but they did it. Now, 36, I live in the West End, where I frequently see men in their 70s holding hands down the street. And I squeeze my husband's hand and think, that'll be us in 40 years.
Thank you, Tristan. Tristan Sober-Blodgett is a visual artist, writer, and an incredible baker.